Hello everyone and welcome back to China Admissions. Today we're going to be diving into the ins and outs of using public transport in China. Navigating the transportation system can seem a bit daunting at first, but with a little bit of guidance, you'll be zipping around the city in no time. So let's get started. Before we dive into the practical details, first we need to try and understand the public transportation system in China. It's very different to what a lot of you might be used to, so this is why we need to go over it. So first of all, you need to download Baidu Maps. This is what you're going to be using as your map app. You won't be able to use Google Maps while you're there, and even if you are, it's going to be very slow. It's much faster to use Baidu Maps. Baidu Maps offers public transport directions and real-time traffic updates and even street-level views, the same as Google Maps. Then you're also going to need to get city-specific transit apps. So depending on which city you're going to go to, you need to download the apps that are going to make your life a lot easier. So for example, you're going to need to get the app that you need to use in order to pay for the metro system or to pay for the bus system. And it's different depending on each city that you're in. Usually you don't have to download this from an app store. This will be in your Wechat. So you'll need to also definitely get Wechat before you go to China and get that all set up. But you will download that. It's a mini program inside of your Wechat and you'll be able to use that instead. So that's going to make your life a lot easier. We can't give you very specific details because it depends on which city you're in, but just you look up bus and the city that you're going to in your Wechat app and you'll be able to find it. Navigating the subway system or the metro system or the MTR system. So people have a lot of names for it, but basically it's one of the most efficient ways to get around China, around their major cities. That's important. And it's very convenient for a lot of people, especially if you don't speak Chinese. It's probably going to be your mode of transportation choice. So first you need to familiarize yourself with the subway map of your city. This is very important. You can download this from Google, you can download it from Wechat as well, or if you are in China and you're in the metro, they'll usually have a picture. So you can take a picture as well and just reference the picture if you need to do that. And if that's just easier for you, I did that for a while and that's what worked for me. But there are certain apps that you can get on Wechat that will also have a very interactive system of being able to click on which metro stop you want to go to and how long it's going to take and the traffic, etc. So it's important to remember that the Chinese metro system is written in Chinese. They will have the English name underneath each stop, but just for you to be ready that it might be a bit difficult if you don't understand Chinese to get used to the different types of names and the different stops that you need to go to. Also, it's going to cost you a different amount depending on which city that you're in to use the metro. In general, the bigger cities are going to be the most expensive. For example, Shanghai, I know, is the most expensive. However, it's still a lot cheaper than many different countries. When I traveled from China to South Korea, I found that the metro system over there was a lot more expensive than what I was used to, even though I was living in Shenzhen, where the metro prices are generally higher than in other cities. So it's not going to be too expensive overall. You can travel from one side of the city to the other side of the city for probably about 10 RMB. Now, how can you pay for the subway? You can either get a ticket, a manual ticket, and this means that you will go to the machines that they have over there. This only accepts cash. Sometimes they have WeChat Pay as well, or you can go to the service counter. Sometimes there are people there, they might not be there all the time, but you might be able to also buy from them if one of the machines is broken, but usually it works. So just make sure to have some coins on you or Chinese RMB, but in small notes in order to buy that. And you will be given either a little ticket that you scan in order to use it, or you'll be given a little plastic coin that you also scan, and then in order to leave at your destination, you put it into the slot and it will open up and you can go, and it gets returned that way to the metro system. Or you can get a transportation card, which you can use instead, which you'll put money on every month and then you can swipe it. This, however, is not that common anymore since most people just have the app on their phone, which means it's just a small, like a QR code that they scan in order to go through, and it costs a very small amount of money. I think it's like 2 RMB in order to go a couple of stops. one tip of advice if you're going to be using the subway is, if you can, try to avoid it during rush hour, and if you have to use it during rush hour, do manage your expectations. People are going to work and coming back from work, and a lot of people are going to be on the metro, and if sometimes it can get so crowded that you might not be able to get on that train because it's so full of people, you have to wait for the next one, and it can be a very uncomfortable experience if you're going in a district where a lot of people tend to go to work, to the CBD, for example. So just manage your expectations with that. Try to go in different hours, or try to find maybe a different mode of transportation during that period of time. Next, we're going to be going over taxis. So using taxis is probably one of the easiest ways for foreigners to travel around. You can pay either in cash, or you can pay through Wechat Pay as well, or Alipay, and just make sure to have the Chinese name, the Chinese address written down, or screenshotted that you can show to the driver. Don't assume that you can say it in English to them. I heard from a taxi driver that he needed to take some people they wanted to go to Shenzhen Bay, which is the Bay Area, in order to cross over to go to Hong Kong. But Bay in Chinese also means north, and that's the name of the Shenzhen train station, to take the train to go to Guangzhou or other cities. So he took them to the other side of the city thinking that they were speaking Chinese, and he did not know that they actually wanted to go to the harbor, which is on a completely different side of the city. So don't assume that they can just understand you when you are speaking, and sometimes your pronunciation in Chinese might not be good enough for them to understand, so they prefer to see a visual reference to know exactly where they're supposed to go, which is understandable. So these are quite easy to use. You can also use Didi. So Didi is like Uber, an app like Uber that you can use, and it is very affordable, and it's also very popular for foreigners because you can input the address that you need to go to, so you don't actually have to try and speak to the driver about where you need to go, and some people are very nervous about doing that. So this is very easy. You just decide where you're going to go, and they pick you up and they take you to that destination. So that is very popular as well. Now, one that most foreigners find extremely daunting is the bus system. The bus system, though, if you have been able to navigate it, is extremely efficient, and the buses come every 2 to 3 minutes. Usually, if I remember when I was there, if I had to wait 5 minutes for a bus, I would think, oh my goodness, it's going to take such a long time. So you get used to how efficient it is, which is definitely not the case in many other places. In many other places, you have to wait an hour in order to get the next bus. So that is something that it's very pleasant to get used to that. The main thing that people find very daunting is that there are so many buses and so many bus lines and so many bus stops, and it can get very confusing if you don't know exactly where you're supposed to go. So that's why I recommend using Baidu Maps, and I also recommend downloading the Wechat program for using the bus system in your city. It will tell you where you're supposed to go and what line you're supposed to use, and it's very helpful as well. It's also available in English. And then you'll also be using either a transportation card that you load money onto to pay. You can also pay in Chinese yuan, paper money as well, but that's becoming very obsolete since most people don't usually pay in cash anymore. Or you'll have the payment app on your phone on WeChat Pay, or Alipay as well. But it's a specific program you need to download for your city's bus, and that's how you pay. And you also get a discount because you're paying with that. So it's very, very, very affordable, and you can go quite far with it as well. What makes it very confusing for a lot of foreigners is if you don't have the app, that makes it a lot easier for you, and you go to the bus stop, all the stops are written only in Chinese characters, and it can get very confusing as to where you're supposed to go, and you can get lost very, very often. That's why I recommend, if you just arrived in China, just try to use the metro system, or try to use a Didi or a taxi instead, because using the buses can be very, very daunting. And if you end up on the wrong side of the city, it's going to be an expensive taxi ride back in order to get to your destination. Bicycles is our final mode of transportation. You will find, depending on which city that you're in, you'll find either orange bicycles, yellow bicycles, or blue bicycles. Some of those companies no longer exist. There was a very big boom in using public bicycles in order to get to different places, and you used it with an app, and it was very affordable, and you could just ride a bike and leave it in a designated area. Right now, I think there's only one company that is working, but it is still very often used, and it's very nice if you just need to cut a 10-minute walk down to 2 minutes or 3 minutes. and it can be quite enjoyable and very scenic as well. So that is also something that you can use. You just need to download the app and make sure to park it in a designated area. Otherwise, you won't be able to lock it, and you won't be able to rent another bike then. So make sure to just leave it in a designated area. So that wraps up our in-depth guide to using public transportation in China. And with the right resources and a sense of adventure, you'll be exploring this amazing country efficiently and economically. If you have any questions or tips of your own, please feel free to share them down below in the comments. And thanks for watching as always. See you guys in the next video.